Diesel heater. Diesel heater. So I watched just about every YouTube video online about Chinese diesel heaters and putting them in a box. And I decided I was going to go ahead and take what I learnt and do it myself. It's a little tour of what I did, trying to take some of the best ideas I saw out there and applying it for the box I wanted to build. I have a very specific want in mind for what I'm going to use it for. And so I'm going to walk you through some of the things that I did that will help me get there. So the first thing is this case. I got it from Princess Auto. It's a little bit smaller than the ones I saw online. I thought that I would like a smaller one than most of the ones that everyone else uses. And for the most part, that was a good idea until I put the fuel tank up on it and realized that it was going to be too tall for this case. So I had to do some modifications for that, but we'll get to that in a bit. So it fits pretty tight. This is the 8 kilowatt diesel heater. So if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you know what how a diesel heater works, but I'll very quickly go through it. It's kind of got 2 chambers. There's the down here, there's the combustion chamber where you have your fresh air in and your exhaust out and your fuel, and it burns and heats up the other chamber, which, you look down here, you can see those fins, heats those fins up real hot, and then through, there's a turbine here that sucks in fresh air, blows it over those fins, and out comes your heated air. So the combustion does not mix with the air that you are breathing. A little pump here, and that draws from the fuel tank, the diesel fuel tank that we have set up here in the back. So what the heater requires is it requires 12 volt power, and then it also requires the controller to be hooked up. And so what I did, I've seen people combine the two, but that kind of narrows down your possibilities for different power options, and I wanted to have a number of different power options available to me, so I decided to split them up. So I bought, it's an LED cable. It's a 3-pin. It's got female in there, the male in there, and it's 10 feet long, and it comes in a 5-pack. So I spliced one up, and I connected it to my controller, and then this end here connects up to the control board for the diesel heater. This guy just kind of, there you go, you can cinch them down like that. And you're good to go. And this is an SAE plug. Looks like so. It just plugs in. And on the other end of it, I just have another SAE plug. But that gives me a lot of options for what I can connect to it. So I've got the cigarette lighter. It plugs into there. Or I could take this guy, 10 feet long, handy, and I can hook it up to my alligator clips. Got that. If I come back here, I've got power to my controller now. You come down here, this is the exhaust pipe, and I've wrapped it up in exhaust tape. It's because I didn't want it to get too hot inside the box, and so anything that would touch that would melt if it was just exposed exhaust, and so I thought maybe this would help. Seems to. And what I did here, they sell these outputs, exhaust outputs, and they're ridiculously expensive. As expensive as the unit itself, $130, $150. So I saw somebody, I can't remember who it was. They said, "Oh, well, what I used was a stainless steel mount for a closet rod." And so I went on Amazon and I found 2 of them for $10. And so I mounted that. And what I did for a male end is I ended up getting a 3/4 inch nipple, and I ground down the threads so that I could slide on my exhaust like so. And then I just fed that through, and then I wrapped it up with an extra layer of the exhaust tape, and so it just sits in there nice and firm. Much cheaper solution than buying the fabricated version of this. One of the things that I hear complained about is the noise of the fuel pump. And that actually doesn't seem to be much of a problem. When I run this, the fan is much louder than the fuel pump. You can't hear the fuel pump over top of the fan. I thought I would be really smart and come up with an ingenious solution of taking a pool noodle and wrapping it around that and zip tying it. But it ended up being 3 times as loud as it was just hanging. So that's what they say, is that don't mount this to anything and just hang it. So I've got it hanging by a zip tie, and it just sits out there in space and seems to be fine. Not very loud at all, unless it's the only thing running, then you can hear it. Other than that, you can't hear it. One of the things that was a real pain was these little clamps that they provide for connecting the fuel line. They're garbage and they don't seal tight at all. And so I was leaking all over the place on this. One of the tips, put a little bit of soap on these before you feed it in. And that helps give it a little bit of lubrication when it's, because it has to, this has to butt right up against the end of the pump and the end of the fuel filter, and so that will ensure that you can do that. And then I had to go and buy some proper clamps and put them on. That seems to be holding up just fine now. And so one of the other things that I did was I got an ammeter and I put that in there. If you look at the back there, right here, that's a shunt. And so you put the, on the one side of the shunt, you put the negative
feed in, and on the other side of the shunt you put the load, negative side of the load, and then you hook the wiring up to this. And what this will do is basically gives you the information about the state of the battery, how much current it's drawing, how much power it's drawing. So current is in amps, the power is in watts, and so you have to figure that out, you divide power by 12. That gives you the current, and then the energy is the total amount that it has run over the amount of time that you have it set. So if I just hold this guy down, it'll go to clear there, and then I hit it again, and so now it's zeroed out. And so this is something I thought would be pretty useful if I was, running off of a battery source that I was, concerned about, maybe a car battery. I wanted to know for sure how much this thing had gone through, just to make sure that I still had enough left to start my car. And I didn't want to just rely on the voltage to figure that out. I wanted to really have a good idea how much energy it drew.
So another thing that I didn't really think about when I was doing this is I cut the exhaust hose that came with this to a length, and then it left me with an end like that is no good. it won't fit like the nice finished end does. So and then this guy doesn't fit that way either, and so I needed some sort of way to bridge those two so I could tie this together. So the first thing I did was I went and bought a new hose, an exhaust hose, but this thing is friggin' gigantic, and it works, but good lord. That's not really practical, and I actually think that it's too long for the recommended exhaust for this thing. So what I ended up doing was I got a can of ginger ale, and I cut the sides off it, and I rolled it up, and I attached it with a hose clamp, and then I kind of fitted it. And then when I got it fit, I wrapped it up with some of this JB Weld Tiger Patch kit, which is intended for patching exhaust mufflers. And so I wrapped it up and I ran it, and it steamed, or it smoked a lot, but then it cured. And so then I took the clamp off and moved it out, and I wrapped that, and then I ran it again, and it smoked a lot for about 20 minutes, and then it cured up to something nice and hard. So now I can just slide on over top of the exhaust out, and then it'll go through the muffler. And then if I want to extend it out a little bit further, I can hook that guy up, bend it off in whatever direction I want it to go. So not being familiar with exhaust tape, it was the same situation with that. I didn't know that when it started up it smoked, and so it was creating a lot of smoke, and I was getting worried, wondering what the heck was going on here. But I guess that's just the nature of the beast. It smokes for about 20 minutes, and then it stops. It's done. It's cured or whatever it does, and then it doesn't smoke anymore. So like I was talking about earlier, the fuel tank is a 10-liter fuel tank. It's much taller than the case, and I wanted it to sit flat, so the whole thing, when I sat it, it would sit I could sit it upright like this. And so I needed to figure out, a way to get that guy to attach into something. And it wasn't going to be able to attach into the top of the case, so I ended up attaching this board. And there was a number of places to attach it to the bottom of the case, so I just attached it to that, and then I attached the tank to the board, and then fed the hose through that, and it kind of strings over behind here. It comes out. That seems to work fairly well. It sits upright like this now, and there's no chance that this thing is going to tip over, blow over, or anything like that. So this unit also comes with a remote, which is kind of nice. And it allows you to turn it on, turn it off, or adjust up and down depending on what setting you have it in. I believe right now, I've got it set in temperature mode, so you can go up or down temperature mode, or if you had it in Hertz mode, you can turn that up and down. And basically what Hertz mode is it tells you how many pumps per second that the fuel pump will do, and so it won't care about the temperature of the surrounding the controller unit. If you look here, that little hole right there, that's the thermometer, and it'll tell you what the surrounding ambient temperature is. If I press OK, it says it's 9 degrees Celsius right now. So if I turn this on, it would try and chase the temperature I have set, which I guess is 19 degrees Celsius. And so why don't we spark this up and see how it goes. So it's saying it's on now. Fan is going. This red indicator tells us that the glow plugs are starting to warm up right now. So this whole process will take maybe 5 minutes. Temperature hasn't gotten up to anything yet. You can hear it now starting to go, and you can also hear it. It's the pump. I can smell the exhaust starting to come out here, and but if you've got your fuel line primed correctly, you're not going to see clouds of exhaust coming out of here. If you don't have it primed correctly, you will see some exhaust for a little bit. It'll be pumping out some clouds. Yeah, the cold side. So this is with the fresh air for the combustion. This is the fresh air that you're going to breathe, and the hot side, which has the exhaust down here, and then this is where the warm air is starting to come out. Now I can feel it starting to warm up now. So if you look here, you can see this is kind of the temperature gauge. That's 1 notch, and so I think there's about 5 or 6. And as it warms up, it'll keep going. But you can see the fan is really starting to kick up now, and the pump is starting to climb up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the case up. So I've got the case all closed up now, and you can only hear the fan now. You can't really hear that pump at all. Come down over here and have a look.
So right now, as it's warming up, glow plugs are going, fans going. It's drawing about 3.5 amps right now.
And you can see here that we're up to now 5 of the 6 bars for the heat that it's pumping out. And yeah, that's good and warm right now. It took about 5 minutes. And you can see the exhaust, it's coming out clear. So it's up at full bars now, cranking out as much energy or as much heat as it's going to crank out. So it's not going to slow down at this point because it's chasing a temperature. So it's chasing 18 degrees, but it's only 10 degrees. And so this thing gives off a lot of heat, but it's not going to heat up the outside to 18 degrees. So I'm going to turn it down, and you'll be able to hear. So that's the temperature it's now chasing, is 9 degrees. And so you'll be able to hear it start to slow down. So it's slowing down now into, let's maintain that temperature mode. I'm only going to try and maintain 9 degrees. So now that the fan has calmed down a little bit, you can hear the fuel pump ticking away. Oh, well, let's do this. I'll crank it up back to 15, 16. And you'll hear it build back up again. Yeah, that's hot. This is not uncomfortable to touch. Like, you're not going to burn yourself on it. I would be a little more concerned about that's really hot. If you leaned up against it, you could burn yourself. So I'm going to be careful around that exhaust. Nothing else is hot. I was going to initially put a thermometer to measure the inside temperature because I was worried about how hot it would get in there. But before I mounted it, I just put it in there to test, and the inside of the box never got much more than 20 degrees Celsius, so I didn't see that there was any kind of point. That's not warm enough to cause any kind of concern, so I didn't bother. So you notice that the glow plug is off, and my understanding is that is what the biggest draw of battery power is on this unit. So let's have a look at the ammeter and see if that's the case.
Well, that's still moving at a pretty good rate. That's 3 amp per hour. That's pretty high. So
it's running on full bore right now, so let's kind of take it down to maintenance mode, which is ideally you would get it up to temperature and then it would just be able to stay at that for a while.
Now it's kind of at its maintain this temperature mode, and it's running at about 0.5 amp per hour. So if you do the math,
You've got a 12 volt deep cycle battery in a trailer or something, and it's got 100 amp hours. Then running at 0.5 amp per hour, you'll yeah, I mean, in theory, if you're going to go through all 100 amp hours, then you're going to get 200 hours running at this mode. So it really doesn't, once it kind of gets up to temperature, takes the 15 minutes or whatever to get full up to temperature, and then kind of switches down into this mode, it really doesn't draw very much power at all.
And so you can see here that its total energy consumed so far is 9 watt hours, which is not even 1 amp.
That's from when I started this up half an hour ago. So one other thing I did for sanity's sake is I labeled generally where how many liters are in this tank. So completely full, it's 10 liters, and I marked 9, 7, 5, 3, and 1. And so you notice where it takes the fuel out, it's probably just above the 3 liter mark. And so if you drop down to 3 liters, stop running, because it's not going to have any fuel that it can access from the outtake here. So I don't know why they put it so high. I guess they don't want you drawing sediment from down here, but I mean, that is a lot of room. It's got a flat spot here that is intended for that, so it's not like I made the choice. So yeah, probably need to carry the jerry can with you. Okay, so let's shut it off here, and I can take you through the shutdown mode, what it wants to do. So we'll click off, shuts off. You can see the glow plug has turned back on again, and the fan is starting to jack up.
The amps are starting to climb again here. So the burn chamber is heating right up, so it can burn off any residue that's sitting around. This doesn't take very long, it only takes a couple of minutes. But that just makes sure that there's no buildup on your glow plugs, and you're going to get complete combustion the next time that you use this.
There you go, just shut the glow plug off.
And now the fan is cranking up here, so that should have dropped the amps down way. Yep. Fan is cranking up just to kind of cool everything off. And so you can see there that it's 11 watt hours used for this whole process of starting it up, warming it up, running it through a few different things over half an hour, and then shutting it back down again. So it's used 1 amp hour, just under 1 amp hour for that whole process. That's pretty good. It's warm. It's not even warm. It's warm. It's still in cool down mode here. How about this guy? It's warm, but I can touch it. And then nothing over here. All of this stuff would be cold. Probably some people looking at this and thinking, what's that all about? You can't get a hose over top of what it comes with. So I just butted the hose up against this, and then just put some duct tape around it. It's just fresh air from the outside. It's not hot, so it doesn't really need to be heat capable.
So this guy, not even warm. How's this guy? It's warm, but only took a minute to really cool down to the point that you can handle it. There you go. So I put this foam in to try and deaden a little bit of the sound from the fan and the pump. Helps a bit, but also makes for a nice way to hold some of these things. I'm going to find a place for the cords as well. This closes up, and the heat doesn't seem to affect this. I ran it for about 8 hours straight, and it's not misshapen, nothing melted, nothing burnt, so it seems to work fine. So I disconnected the controller This guy kind of tucks away there. Clip shut. Power comes out. That clip shut. And the whole unit can just pick up and sit on the ground. It's pretty heavy. And it's not exactly aerodynamic, but it's solid the way that it sits on the ground. Like, that's going nowhere.